Hello and welcome to the Blue Chair. The Blue Chair is a space where we talk everything SoluGrowth, from the inspiration around the inception to the people that are behind the magic. I'm your host, Zandile Mthembu, and I'm here with the CEO of SoluGrowth, Sandile Gwala. Hi, Sandile, and welcome to the Blue Chair.
Good morning.
Sandile, so I think let's start with who would you say Sandile is, and how did you get to this point where you've started a company that has 300 plus staff members?
Well, I'm just a township boy. I mean, I grew up in KZN, in a small township called Esikawini. And I was there up until I went to boarding school. And up until that time when I finished my matric, I really didn't know a lot about what SoluGrowth does. So I didn't necessarily leave school and I say I want one day to have SoluGrowth. But when I got to university, I was going there to do BCom accounting and qualify as a chartered accountant. And when I got into my first year, I then got exposed to a subject called business information systems. That's pretty much what put me where I am today and put at the heart of what SoluGrowth does. I did business information system, decided to major in business information system, decided to be a computer auditor, and became a specialist in SAP and became a specialist in outsourcing. You know, 2 decades down the line as an outsourcing specialist, I was quite passionate and keen to start a company that will be purely branded as an outsourcing company globally. And that's how we got here as SoluGrowth. But at heart, I'm still a township boy. I still go back home, visit my township. I was there just a few days ago, and I still go to my old church in the township, and I love it. I think that culture for me still makes me who I am. My respect, my culture, my humanity is really built out of a community environment. I've never grew up as I'm just an individual. You know, even if I look at 300 people, we actually touch far much more than 300 people, you know, simply because of how the organization is developed. And I think it comes from where I come from, and that's where I am.
For sure. You touched on community. I'd just like to delve in there for a second. Why, or rather, is community important to you? And if so, why?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I always assume I'm going to live for 8 years. And in the 8 years I'm going to live, I just want to leave the situation or environment better than I found it. So whether it's in the township, whether it's in the area where I live in now, in Morningside, or whether it's in the rural areas where my grandparents, I mean, the Gwala nation still has a king down in Durban. It's called the Mapepetweni. And it's a municipal area, it's got a chief, and you can still go there. Whether I improve that or the township where I grew up, it just doesn't matter. So for me, community is important. The fact that I was not created in the island, it means I need to be part of the community. I need to be part of the society. I need to develop SoluGrowth that if I go into a funeral in Ladysmith and some child needs a bursary, SoluGrowth should be able to do that. You know, it shouldn't take forever. That's community. But at the same time, encourage my people, so people like Mangoba, or people like Jan Henry, or people like Gwako, encourage them to say, depending how you define community, I will allow you during the course of the week to go and do some of the things. Mangoba, for instance, he will appear on TV as a CEO of another entity, but that entity is an NGO that assists youth. And I encourage him to do it because it's an extension to youth. Gwako does exactly the same thing. I sit in the board of a youth accelerator for employment called Harambe. And I do it for free. I mean, it's an NGO that I volunteer my time as a board member of Harambe, and that's part of community. So community for me is not fixed to say it is my siblings. I've got 3 siblings, my brothers and their wives and their children. It's not limited to that. Community is broader. Community now, we're opening in Egypt. That is my community now. I look at the needs and I see how I can contribute. Opening an office in Mauritius, how can I contribute? That's community. So you become a global citizen. Community is inclusive of anything that you can touch on, whether virtually or physically. And that for me, and being a Christian, community is kind of natural, you know? So I love community. You look at our shared values, it speaks to community. So that's a legacy that I would love SoluGrowth to live even beyond my tenure as a CEO of SoluGrowth.
Sounds like it's a very important thing to you, which is amazing. And I hear another thing that's quite important to you is golf. And apparently you are an avid golf player that is pretty good at the sport.
Don't know, I would use good. Passionate about golf, I love golf. You know, golf for my age, you know, if you've lived 5 decades, you know, there are certain sports you can no longer play. I used to play soccer when I was at high school, as well as I was at university. But I can't run, I can't jump as I used to. So golf for me is helpful. I walk 10 kilometers, 10,000 meters when I play golf. I walk and I enjoy it. It keeps me healthy. So at least it supplements what I do. But I love golf.
There's a video that was trending of Tiger Woods, and he takes a shot, and he's so confident in that the ball is going to go into the hole that he doesn't even look back. Instead, he turns to his components and he shakes their hand almost as a confirmation that he himself knew that it went in. So that being said, in your career or since inception of SoluGrowth, when was a moment for you when you knew that against all odds, it was going to be a win for you?
Look, by nature, since I was young, I'm quite confident in what I do. So it's not necessarily because of SoluGrowth. I mean, I'll tell you a story. I was doing matric and I was 16, and I mapped out exactly what I want to do in life. And some of those things, I mean, I'm so obsessed that I will even put age. I will get married when I am 28. I will do, but I forget about them. But because it's in the back of my mind and it drives me, you know, and even when I started SoluGrowth, I mean, people know SoluGrowth has started in 2018. But in my mind and in my heart, SoluGrowth started in like 2011. And when it started in 2011, I could see, maybe I didn't know it was SoluGrowth. I mean, the name came from the boardroom by the young stars. But by 2011, Deloitte was asking me to get into their group exco. And I said to them, listen, there is a risk here that you might put me in your succession planning. And I wouldn't like to.
Because you have bigger plans.
My journey is I need to go do something else because I'm a bad manager, but I'm a good inventor. And those two, sometimes we get confused. You take a position as an inventor and you take a position of a manager and you do a horrible job. You mess up things because as an inventor, you're looking for something to create. To get into some organizations, it's like being a president of a country. That thing, you can't just change everything. You know, it's a system that works. It's an entity. You just become a visionary leader for that time being. And I wouldn't fit in there. I wouldn't be a government minister. I wouldn't be a president of a country. I wouldn't be a manager of an existing business like a Deloitte or an Accenture. I needed to go and create something because I'm good at creating something new. I'm good at visualizing. I'm good at mobilizing people. I'm good at putting different people together and work with different people. I'm very good at that. But I know that SoluGrowth is going to reach a stage where it needs a manager, not a Sandile. If I overstay, I will break SoluGrowth. So I need to be very careful at what stage that is. So when 2017, 2018 came and we started, and I started to convince my fellow partners to say, guys, let's go do this thing. I knew that we could make it. It has been a testimony. You know, when COVID came 2 years into this, people were panicking. Some consulting companies were shutting down, retrenching, and so forth. I didn't panic not once. In actual fact, we just continued to have our meeting. I remember 3 months, I told all of our excos, say, guys, I want you to take time off, take leave. we took leave, and our business went well. In actual fact, SoluGrowth pretty much almost doubled during COVID. So I was quite certain, but not because I know everything and the environment is exceptionally supportive. But when you start something, you've got to set the goal and believe that you are capable of achieving it. Because if you doubt, trust me, failure is not going to come because of failure. Failure is going to come from within. And I think when we started SoluGrowth and the people that I started it with, we pretty much knew that we can do this. And we still believe we will do this.
That's amazing. And I think it's also testament to the power of SoluGrowth, that during a time such as COVID, when so many companies struggled, that you went from strength to strength. But I almost want to go back to your statement around you being 16 and having all these dreams. I mean, coming from where you come from, how was that even possible? How was it possible that you were sitting as a 16-year-old and you were having these dreams? What was the thing that was, I guess, fueling it or making you think that way?
The honest truth is I don't know. I think it's just my DNA is just created. I always believe that we only need 20% of the world population to make a difference, and we will solve 80% of the country's problems. So we don't necessarily need 100% of people to do right. So long as 20%, even in SoluGrowth, so long as I've got 20% doing the right things, we will take this thing. So I never try to mobilize 100% people anywhere I am. And so I think it was in my DNA. I can't say I pick it up from my mom, my dad, and so forth. I was always a serious person. I mean, my cousins always say, yes, as if I ran out of fuel on the highway, I will avoid going to my brother, meaning me, because I'm going to ask them serious questions. Didn't you measure how far the next fuel station is for you to start driving and not use, So I'm always serious. I'm always serious in life. I don't try to be what I'm not. I don't try to be a clown. If I'm asked to be an MC at a wedding, first I refuse, because I don't think it's good for people who are serious like myself. But if I do it, I don't try to be a comedian. There are Trevor Noahs that can be comedians. I'm just a serious individual. I think situations. I sometimes overthink situations. But one thing for sure, I solve problems. That's no problem that is too big for the brain to be solved. If you can't solve it alone, then you look for somebody else who's different from you to solve the problem. There's no problem you can't solve in the world, in as far as I believe. And that's what we're trying to do at SoluGrowth.
I think it's amazing that during a time when you didn't have almost a picture to look at or representation, I would say, you could still dream, and that dream got you to this point. Going back to the theme around golf, and since you love it so much, everyone that has played the sport, I would say myself, can find the sport quite frustrating. And you almost have to play it in such a way that every hole is a new challenge, because you can't carry that frustration through, right? Am I correct in saying that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's exactly.
Okay.
I mean, golf is a true reflection of life. In a one round of golf, on average, you hit between 85 and 100 shots. But every shot is unique. So I can have a great shot now and I put it there 200 meters down the fairway. The next shot is not dependent on the previous shot at all. There was only one thing that is common. The one thing that is common is your mindset. Because golf is it's not even about talent. It's about your mindset. Where are you at that point in time? Because even if I know how to hit a shot, if I was to think about the payment we're about to make in Egypt, and I don't agree, and emotionally it impacts me, it changes my shot. So the shot can be hooked, can go anywhere, simply because of my emotional state at that time. That's why I always say golf is a reflection of the true reality of life. The obstacles that you have to overcome, suddenly there's wind, suddenly there's noise of people, it disturbs your shot, and that is why I play golf. It is a true reflection, and it tests your character. because if you hit a bad shot, to recompose yourself for the next shot, you need a lot, you know, because if you're still sitting in the previous shot and your emotions are there, you're just gonna hit 5 bad shots in a series. And in life, that's just how life goes.
Yeah.
You know, we had one bad year at SoluGrowth during COVID because it caught us off guard at that point in time. And some of our key clients in some sectors shut down or closed, the automotive guys and blah, 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 and so forth. So that impacted us. It took us 16% backwards. If we were obsessed about the backwards, we probably would have planned the following year with overcautiousness that says to remember last year. But it was just an event, it was just a shot. We had to focus into the future based on the capabilities, based on the market. So I take that analogy for me as everything is God.
I think every CEO, certainly every CEO that I have spoken to, has a book, a saying, or advice from someone along their journey. And just like you just made the example around the noise of golf, what would that be for you that you've carried throughout your journey that has almost been the thing that makes you carry on when most people would use that situation for as a point to stop or to give up? What would that be for you?
I mean, maybe I'll say 2 books. I wouldn't prefer, I mean, the most important book for me, particularly as a CEO and leading a company that you started yourself, is the Bible, because it kind of takes you through all the situations. Even when you get discouraged, it gives you hope. You know, you don't question whether it's true or not, but it gives you hope in the most difficult times. So that's the Bible. But I think from the business perspective, I think the most important book I ever read that kind of made me a global citizen, and that's why when I speak about SoluGrowth, I've never spoken about SoluGrowth as a South African company that is chasing South African tenders, ever, from day one. SoluGrowth, when we started it, it was clear that we want to conquer the world. And that book that I read that gave me this mindset is a book, I think it is Stephen Friedman, called The World is Flat. You know, he's probably republished it 3 times and so forth. But at the gist of the book is that your competition as any company, whether you're in automotive, whether you're in airline, whether you're in consulting, is global. So I can have a competitor sitting in India. I have a competitor sitting in Philippines. So we were chasing an opportunity in Australia 2 years ago, and the COO of this company was a South African. So we're like, great, we into this, we prepared, we priced it correctly, but we just missed that the competitors that we are working against, they are in Philippines. They've got the same time zone as Australia. They are far cheaper than South Africa, probably about 25% cheaper than South Africa. We missed the essence of the book, The World is Flat. Because if the world is flat, I might be putting a proposal here with Pierre and Francois, but a competitor sitting in Philippines has got certain competitive advantages I'm supposed to take into consideration. Just because they are not within the borders of South Africa doesn't mean they are not your competition. So, because the book I think was initially published around 2005, and it kind of influenced how I look at the world. So even at SoluGrowth or outside of SoluGrowth, I only invest in things that touch on import and export. It sounds like I do drugs when I speak about import and export. But I think you can replace products that companies import. So we invested in a company that does sodium sulfate. So companies that use sodium sulfate, they import it because it's a scarce product. So with some friends who are engineers, we said, could we create this product in South Africa and manufacture it in South Africa? And DTI gave us some great incentives. That's replacing imports. SoluGrowth is about exporting professional skills from South Africa, delivered in South Africa, but delivering it for the world. So whether it's MasterCard in the US, whether it is a company in the UK or in Philippines or in Singapore or in France, we do it out of South Africa. We're exporting skills, young professionals who are accountants capable of delivering for a UK company out of South Africa. That's an export. So that, for me, that book influenced the vision that I have, not just for SoluGrowth, but even beyond, just for myself as a person, by Stephen Friedman.
Sure. So I guess going with that and the choice that you made around, because you knew, as you say, that you knew SoluGrowth would be a company that has global footprint. But during a time where so many entrepreneurs and so many people have the dreams or the vision to have their companies globally, why did you not leave the country and almost start up shop somewhere overseas? Why South Africa?
Look, I mean, I've worked overseas. I've stayed in London, I've stayed in Denmark, but I love South Africa. I think those people that have worked outside of South Africa, they will tell you, you miss South Africa. You know, I was in a meeting last night and I was speaking about my experience when I was working in Greenland. So now Greenland is kind of in the North Pole. So if it's winter, it is dark 24 hours a day. If it is summer, it is light 24 hours a day. You come into South Africa, I call it is summer, 12 months a year. You know, even if it's in winter, you pretty much still go and play golf with your shorts, you know, and you can easily survive on 17, 18 degrees Celsius. So South Africa, one, just the natural environment of South Africa is great. But two, we probably don't know how great we are as South Africans. So sometimes we are very negative against our own capabilities. But if you look, South Africa is very innovative. I mean, go into the health sector, go into technology. A lot of technologies were invented by South Africans in the world, you know, and it's a very innovative environment. It's just we don't capitalize in it. South Africa has got an advantage of minerals underground, but it's exceptional in the service space. Whether you go to telecoms, whether you go to broadcasting, whether you go to sectors like banking, South Africa is exceptional. So there's a whole lot of things that makes you feel, if you are in South Africa, you actually can tap into a whole lot of things that you can go and sell in the world. So I have never been tempted to say, do I want to stay in America? Or do I want to stay in the UK? Do I want to move? Not at all. It's not in my mind. And there's a whole lot of problems that if you want to sleep peacefully when you die, you can solve a lot of problems in South Africa. So I don't believe, even now, when we open a branch in Egypt, Mauritius, it is part of expanding a South African baby. It is not about relocating away from South Africa. So you are expanding, but you will still have a footprint here in Pretoria, in Cape Town, in Durban, and probably even more. You know, so it's never crossed my mind. I still do believe that I've got a competitive advantage from South Africa to compete with the world.